worship team for the powerful worship. And of course, if you feel that in every season and time, God has been good to you, can you please type amen on the chat tab? There you go. Amen. 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 Yes. Amen. Thank you, brothers and sisters. And of course, this time he has been ready since kanina pa to give us his message. Let's all welcome Brother Alvin Barcelona. Hi, Brother Alvin.
Thank you so much, Pong. Good evening, a blessed evening to everyone, brothers and sisters of the Feast Bay Area District and the Feast Provincial Region. Thank you so much for being here. A good evening to Father Bob, to Brother Kaloy, to our co-builders and leaders, and to all the servants taking opportunity of this monthly uh, gathering, discipleship formation, where we deepen our understanding and appreciate better our faith, especially with our topic tonight. Father Bob and I have been talking about this for days now. Our hearts are burning on this issue that is somehow affecting the whole world. And we, at the Light of Jesus family, should be equipped with the knowledge and the learnings of how we should understand this issue better in the light of the faith. And I'm sure Father Bob, Brother Kaloy, our builders tonight will bless us even more and add to our knowledge, and above all, give us the right perspective on how to approach this issue on transgenderism. So I won't take much of the time. I just want to thank you again. This is our continuing efforts in one of our discipleship programs to again help everyone deepen our faith. So once again, God bless our session tonight. Thank you to all of you who organized this monthly discipleship gathering, and thank you again, Father Bob, for blessing us with this. God bless us all. Enjoy the evening. Learn and be blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Alvin. Maraming salamat. Okay. I know that you are busy there. You're just using your phone. And I know that you still have a lot of engagements for today. Hindi pa tapos ang araw mo, pero thank you very much for your time. And that's true, no? Brother Alvin voiced out what we have been curious about. I mean, how do we, what would be the correct perspective with regard to the rise of transgenderism? Okay, here in the Philippines, perhaps it's not as controversial as it is in the United States, but still, it's a phenomenon that is already happening all over the world. It's happening to Brother Alvin. So the question is, how can we be equipped in dealing with this? All right. So we are now live on YouTube and Facebook. Okay, so if you go check out the YouTube of the Light of Jesus family and the Facebook pages of the feast, then in that case, then please, if you feel that someone needs to hear God's message for us tonight, share the live stream on your pages, or tag someone in the comment section, and also invite them, or for those who are already viewing us on the live stream, you may ask questions. Also use the comment section there, and then we'll make sure that your questions will be asked tonight. Okay, and of course we are now excited to really hear about this correct perspective on the rise of transgenderism. Let us have our first regular guest, Brother Kaloy. Brother Kaloy, kumusta ka dyan sa Davao?
Hello, good evening, Brother Pong. Narinig mo ba ako?
Yes po, narinig po kita. Magandang gabi po.
Okay, sige. I got confused because I have two screens in front of me. I'm using my cell phone because there's something wrong with the webcam of my laptop.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
So,
let me correct you there. There's something wrong with the camera of your new laptop. Tama ba?
It cannot be detected.
Okay.
So I'll have it repaired. Well,
all right.
Anyway,
Take it away,
tonight,
Brother Kaloy.
yes po. So tonight ay pagpapatuloy po namin ni Father Bob ang pagtalakay po sa 6th Commandment. At madalas ang impression po natin na ang mga, hindi naman madalas, sa iba, ang impression natin pag pinag-uusapan ang 10 utos ay mga bawal, no? Ang hindi natin nare-realize, ang mga utos ng Diyos ay ipinagkaloob niya upang tayo ay manatili, no, sa kanyang pag-ibig, upang tayo ay manatiling payapa at manatiling masaya, manatiling protektado, at manatiling magkaroon ng buhay na ganap at kasiya-siya. So, ang topic po na matatouch natin, which is under the 6th Commandment, ay ang transgenderism. Ano? Ito yung pag-iisip na kung saan ang kasarian ng tao ay pinipili. Pwede mong piliin kung ikaw ba ay lalaki o ikaw ay babae. At maaring hindi pa ito ganun kalaganap ngayon dito sa ating bansa. Pero sa ibang bansa, nagkakaroon na ng issue patungkol dito sa mga eskwelahan, sa batas. At nagkakaroon ng pagkalito ang mga kabataan. Ang epektado dito yung mga kabataan, higit lalo ang pamilya. At ngayon, maganda na mapag-usapan natin ito para handa tayo. Sabi nga ni Brother Alvin kanina, ay ma-equip tayo. At alam natin kung paano ito haharapin at sasagutin. At para malinaw sa atin ng lahat, dapat balikan natin yung banal na kasulatan. Dahil ito yung magiging gabay natin. Di tayo pwedeng magkamali basta tayo ay nakaangkla sa banal na kasulatan. At napakasimple lang, At babalikan din natin actually yung passage na narinig na rin natin dati, nung tinalakay natin yung homosexuality at yung sakramento ng kasal, So parang review. Sa aklat ng Genesis, sinabi, nilalang nga ng Diyos ang tao ayon sa kanyang larawan. Lumalang siya ng isang lalaki at isang babae, at sila'y pinagpala. So malinaw po na ang Diyos ay lumalang ng isang lalaki at isang babae. At meron pong dahilan kung bakit nilikha po ng Diyos ang tao na isang lalaki at isang babae. Hindi po ito nagkataon lamang. Merong plano ang Diyos, merong dahilan kung bakit lalaki at babae ang kanyang nilikha. Babalikan po natin yung ating natutunan sa theology of the body. Number 1, kaya nilikha ng Diyos ang tao na lalaki at babae dahil sumasalamin ito sa hinaharap ng buong sangkatauhan. Ano yung hinaharap ng buong sangkatauhan? Ang hinaharap ng buong sangkatauhan ay ang makapiling ang Diyos. So, kung papaanong ang tao ay lalaki at babae, magkaiba. Pero bagamat magkaiba, ang lalaki at babae ay nakatadhana sa isa't isa. So, diyan lang makikita natin yung future natin. Bagamat tayo, tao, malayo at iba sa Diyos, pero bagamat ang Diyos at ang tao ay magkaiba, nakatadhana na mag-isang dibdib. Kaya nga, kung titignan natin yung pinakaunang kwento sa Book of Genesis, ito ay patungkol sa pag-iisang dibdib. Si Adan at Eva, sinabi, iiwan ng lalaki ang kanyang pamilya, sasama sa kanyang asawa, ang babae, at sila ay magiging isa. Hindi na sila dalawa. Sila na ay isa. Ito yung kakahantungan ng sangkatauhan sa future. Ating pakikipag-isang dibdib. sa Diyos. Ang Diyos makikipag-isang dibdib sa atin. At eto rin, yung huling kwento sa Aklat ng Pahayag. No, nakita ni Juan, no, sa isang pangitain na bumababa ang bagong Jerusalem. Ang bagong Jerusalem ay ang simbahan na handa ng pakasalan nung kanyang makakaisang dibdib. Sino yung makakaisang dibdib ng simbahan? Ang kordero, si Jesus. So, ito po yung sinasabi sa aklat ni Propeta Isaias, na ang bagong langit, ang bagong lupa ay hindi na katulad ng lugar natin ngayon, kundi magkasama na ang Diyos at ang tao. No? So mag-iisang dibdib na sila, bagamat sila ay magkaiba. At sa pagtingin natin sa nilikha ng Diyos, ang tao, lalaki at babae, makikita natin dito agad, obvious agad, na ito ang pangarap ng Diyos, na ito ang plano ng Diyos, na ito ang hinaharap ng sangkatauhan. Tumingin lang tayo sa tao, lalaki at babae, bagamat magkaiba, sila ay nakatadhana sa isa't isa. Gayon din ang Diyos at ang tao. Una pa lang yan. Pangalawa, nilikha ng Diyos ang tao bilang lalaki at babae dahil sa pamamagitan nito ay maaari pwedeng sumibol ang ganap at tunay na pag-ibig. Dahil ang babae at lalaki ay magkaiba. Physiologically, biologically, psychologically. Kaya nga, pwede nilang punuan ang isa't isa. Na ibibigay ng lalaki ang kanyang sarili sa babae at ganun din ang babae na ibibigay niya ang kanyang sarili sa lalaki. Kung titignan lang natin, yung biological makeup, physiological makeup. Ang lalaki pumapasok sa babae at ang babae naman ay tinatanggap niya ang lalaki sa kanyang katawan. At dito, dahil sa pagkakaiba na ito na sinadya at pinlano ng Diyos, possible ang tunay na at ganap na pag-ibig. Bakit? Dahil sumasalamin ito sa kalikasan ng Diyos. Dahil ang tao ay nilikha na naayon sa imahen at larawan ng Diyos. At ang Diyos ay pag-ibig. Nagkakaroon ng pag-ibig dahil sa pagkakaiba. Hindi na kailangan ng pag-ibig kung pare-parehos lang, kung walang conflict, kung wala yung hindi pagkakasundo, kaya nga nagkakaroon ng pagbibigayan sa mag-asawa. Dito natin nakikita ang pag-iral ng tunay na pag-ibig sa pagkakaiba. Dahil bakit nilikha ng Diyos ang tao bilang lalaki at babae. Pangatlo, dahil nga magkaiba ang babae at lalaki, sa kanilang pagkakaiba, bagamat sila'y iba, pwede silang maging isa, at dahil sa kanilang pag-iisa, dahil sa kanilang pag-ibig, pwedeng sumibol ang buhay. At dito nagsisimula ang pamilya. Dahil sa pagkakaiba ng lalaki at babae, merong tatay at merong nanay. At dahil merong tatay at nanay, pwedeng magkaroon ng anak. Dito nagsisimula na mabuo at maitaguyod ang isang pamilya. At ang pamilya ay imahen ng banal na Trinidad. Ng kabanal-banalang Trinidad, ng Holy Trinity. Kung papaanong ang Ama, iniibig ang anak, at ang anak, iniibig ang Ama, At dahil ang Ama ay Diyos at ang Anak ay Diyos, ang pag-ibig ng Ama sa Anak at ng pag-ibig ng Anak sa Ama ay Diyos din, ang Espiritu Santo. At ito ay nakatatak sa pinakadakilang nilikha ng Diyos, ang tao. Ang tatay, iniibig ang nanay, at ang nanay, iniibig ang tatay. At dahil ang tatay ay tao, at ang nanay ay tao, ang pag-ibig nila sa isa't isa ay tao rin, ang anak. So, hindi ito pwedeng maging posible kung parehas. Dapat magkaiba. Lalaki at babae, tatay at nanay. So, makikita natin mga kapatid na sa tao bilang lalaki at babae, nakaangkla ang kalikasan na ito sa katotohanan at kalikasan din ng Diyos. At kapag titignan natin kung ano yung idea na gustong ipasok ng transgenderism, nakakatakot. Akala natin parang okay lang siguro kung gusto nila, trip nila na pakiramdam nila na lalaki sila bagamat sila ay babae, o pakiramdam nila na babae sila bagamat sila ay lalaki, okay lang kasi may kanya-kanya naman tayong kalayaan, no? Pero hindi. Kung ito ay pahihintulutan lamang natin, ito yung sinasabi ni Benedict XVI, nung siya ay nabubuhay pa, na ang pinakahuling paghihimagsik daw ng tao ay ang pagsisimula ng mga gender ideology na ganito, katulad ng itong transgenderism. Bakit paghihimagsik sa Diyos? At ultimate pa, kasi kapag sinabi mong tayo ang pipili kung ano ang ating kasarian, di para na rin sinabi mo, wala talagang lalaki at babae. Nakadepende na kung kahit kanino. Magiging relative na siya, subjective na siya. At nakakatakot, pwede itong magbago. Kasi kung feel mo ngayon, lalaki ka, baka mamaya sa susunod na taon, ang feel mo naman, babae ka. No? Ito ay nakadepende lamang sa emosyon, sa nararamdaman, na pwedeng magbago. At kung babalikan natin yung pagkakaugat ng katotohanan na ito, na ang tao ay lalaki at babae, sa banal na kasulatan, ang unang mangyayari ay parang pinatay na rin natin ang pamilya. No? Paano pa sisibol? Paano pa magsisimula ang pamilya? Kung pwede kong piliin na, sige, lalaki ako, kahit na babae aking katawan, papalitan ko yung aking kasarian. Gawin kong lalaki. Paano pa akong magkakaanak kasama ang partner ko na parehas kami na babae? Pinabago ko lang yung aking ari. No? Hindi mababago yung ating kalikasan bilang isang lalaki kung ikaw ay lalaki, at yung kalikasan bilang babae kung ikaw ay babae. So, parang pinatay na rin natin ang pamilya, at alam nating lahat na ang pinaka-basic na institution ay pamilya. Ang pamilya ang bumubuo ng lipunan, lipunan na siyang nagiging dahilan ng sibilisasyon. Paano pa magkakaroon ng sibilisasyon? Paano pa magkakaroon ng lipunan kung wala ng pamilya? Paano magpapatuloy ang buhay? Ito ay magdudulot ng kamatayan, hindi buhay. At alam nating lahat na kapag kabuhay, yan ay sa Diyos. Kapag kamatayan, yan ay sa diablo. No? Kaya, ang gawain na ito ay gawain mula sa diablo na nililito tayo. Ano? Pangalawa, hindi na rin po pwedeng sumibol ang tunay at ganap na pag-ibig. Paano pa magiging ganap ang pag-ibig kung na bago na ang ang iyong kasarian, ano? Yung pagtatalik ng lalaki at babae ay hindi na naaayon sa tunay na kalikasan. Kaya hindi na buo, no, yung matatawag natin na fulfillment at satisfaction, ano? Kasi binago mo na. No? Hindi na ito yung likas, no? Mawawala yung mga natural na mga lumalabas na mga liquid, ano? Yung natural na forma at hulma, ano, ng laman, no, ng kasarian ng ari ng isang babae at ng isang lalaki dahil binago mo, ano? Hindi na siya original. At hindi lamang yung tunay at ganap na pag-ibig ang ating tinatanggal, hindi lamang natin pinapatay ang pamilya. Actually, kapag sinabi mong ako ang pipili ng kasarian ko, tinatanggal mo ang Diyos. Tinatanggal natin sa picture ang katotohanan ng Diyos. Dahil nga, ang pagiging tao bilang lalaki at babae nakaangkla sa katotohanan at kalikasan ng Diyos. So, kung baguhin mo yun, tinatanggal mo ang katotohanan ng pag-iral ng Diyos. Inaalis mo na siya sa picture. Na? At basic itong tukso na ito. Dahil actually ito yung sinasabi ng Diablo kay Adan at Eva noong ipinakita sa kanila ang bunga na nagbibigay ng kaalaman ng mabuti at masama, no? Ikaw ang magpasya, ikaw ang pumili. Ngayon yun na ang nangyayari. Hindi na kaloob ng Diyos ang kasarian ng tao, kundi ikaw na ang pumili kung saan ka masaya. Kung masaya ka bilang isang lalaki, palitan mo yung kasarian mo. Hindi ka na babae, lalaki ka na. Kung masaya ka bilang babae, sige, palitan mo yung kasarian mo. Hindi ka na lalaki, babae ka na. Tinatanggal natin ang katotohanan ng Diyos. Ito ang maidudulot ng ideology na ito. At ito ay delikado. Bakit? Siyempre, pag inalis na natin sa picture ang Diyos, mawawala na rin ang dignidad ng tao. Wala na siyang dignidad. Kasi, Diyos lang naman ang hindi nagbabago. Kaya, kung wala na yung Diyos at nakadepende na lang yung ating dignidad sa ating sarili, pwede siyang magbago anytime. Katulad na ng sabi ko kanina, ang mga pagpapasya na katulad nito, kung anong gusto kong kasarian ngayon, yun ang aking kasarian, nakadepende ito sa feelings, sa emotion, na nagbabago. At dahil dito, delikado ang dignidad, ang dangal ng tao. Kung sa Diyos lang siya nakaangkla palagi, hindi ito magbabago. Kasi ang Diyos hindi nagbabago. Katulad na ng sabi ko kanina, ang 10 utos ay hindi pagbabawal dahil gusto ng Diyos na pahirapan ang ating buhay. Kundi, ang 10 utos ay pamamalagi, pananatili sa pag-ibig niya. At ang pag-ibig ng Diyos ay safe. Ang pag-ibig ng Diyos ay constant. Ang pag-ibig ng Diyos ay maaasahan, hindi nagbabago. Kaya kung ang dangal ng tao ay nakadepende sa Kanya, hindi ito magbabago. Kahit anong mangyari. Ang value natin bilang isang tao ay hindi mawawala. Pero tanggalin mo ang Diyos, wala na lahat. At yung iba, ang mangyayari, marireduce na lang tayo sa physical reality. Ano? At sinasabi ng iba na, kaya pumapasok din dito yung ikalimang utos, yung 5th Commandment. Naalala ninyo na binanggit natin sa ikalimang utos, sa huwag kang papatay. No? Hindi lamang yung huwag kang papatay, kundi kasama din dito yung pangangalaga sa ating sariling katawan, pangangalaga sa ating sariling buhay. At kasama dito ang lahat ng bahagi ng ating katawan. Sinasuggest ng ideology ng transgenderism na hiwalay ang katawan at ang espiritu ng tao. Hindi. Ang tao ay body and soul, no? Katawan at espiritu magkasama. Yun ang ating buong pagkatao. Hindi yung sinasabi na pakiramdam ko, ako ay isang babae na nakakulong sa katawan ng isang lalaki. Hindi. Kung ano ang ating katawan, yun ang ating buong pagkatao. Dahil ang nilikha ng Diyos ay hindi lamang ang katawan at hindi lamang ang kaluluwa, kundi katawan at kaluluwa. Tao. Buo. At kung ang pagkatao ay lalaki, lalaki talaga. Kung ang pagkatao ay babae, babae talaga. So, hindi natin pwedeng sabihin na nakakulong lang ako sa katawan ng isang lalaki, pero babae talaga ako. Kaya, pwede kong ipatanggal ang aking ari at palitan ng ari ng isang babae. Hindi natin ito pwedeng gawin. Dahil ang bahagi na ito ng ating katawan ay malusog at walang problema. Malusog, walang problema, walang sakit. At ito ay ipinagkaloob ng Diyos. Ito ay nasa plano ng Diyos. Ito yung dapat na palagi nating isaalang-alang, mga kapatid, na ang ating kasarian ay regalo, kaloob galing sa Diyos. So, hindi ito pinagpapasyahan, kundi tinatanggap at ipinagpapasalamat at sineselebrate. Sineselebrate. Dapat natin ang ating pagiging isang tao. Sineselebrate dapat natin ang ating pagiging lalaki. Sineselebrate dapat natin ang ating pagiging babae. No? At sa ganitong paraan, sasang-ayon tayo palagi at nakahanay palagi sa nakahanay Bisaya yun nakasunod sa kung ano ang plano ng Diyos para sa hinaharap. Ayan. So si Father Bob, ipapaliwanag niya sa atin yung mga nangyayari ngayon sa lipunan, sa ibang bansa, at yung mga biological factors, mga scientific, So, Father Bob, I am now giving you the opportunity to continue our discussion on transgenderism.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Our program tonight is going out on YouTube, as well as Light of Jesus, among others, all right? If many in the United States see it, they will give very vicious comments on what I'm about to share with you. Because there's a strong movement in the United States to affirm transgenderism. Now, the fact of the matter is that only 1.4% of the population in the United States has gone through a transition to woman or back to man. Now, when I say that, that's the language that's used. In other words, there's a lot of gender identity courses which are being taught on college campuses, which are not rooted in any psychological or scientific studies at all. It's just that there is a strong, strong movement by L, B, G, T, and T would be transgender movement to fully see this as a value in our society, and that trans people should not be discriminated against. I would absolutely agree with that. That we should not discriminate against gays, lesbians, bisexuals, heterosexuals because of their sexuality. The church makes that very clear, that all of us, no matter what our sexuality, have dignity, including someone who has gone through trans surgery. So that's not what my talk is really going to be about tonight, but it's going to be about sharing some biological facts founded in secular studies. In other words, I'm not going to be quoting anything from the Pope. Already, Brother Kaloy has done that. He's given the church's point of view. But the point of view that I'm going to give, and after I share it with you, if people watch it on YouTube, you know what they would say? They would say, I am a bigot, that I'm transphobic. It's a word that's commonly used now in the United States for anyone who disagrees with gender theory that's being taught on college campuses or in public schools or in public grade schools. They would say transphobic. Now, if you look at the word phobia, to be phobic means to have an extreme, irrational fear of something or someone. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a trans person. I have seen many, and you know immediately that they are not women and they are not men. They are transgender, but there are only two genders. And what so many transgenders go through is what is known as gender dysphoria. It's a psychological illness. Let me give an example. When someone is born and is raised as a child, they might early on, at the age of 5 or 6, say to mom and dad, I feel like I'm a girl, but I'm a boy, and this is really confusing me. Now, depending on the parents, what usually would happen, if that goes on for a long period of time, usually they will go to a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and work through what so many transgender people still have after they have trans surgery. And that is extreme anxiety, depression, fear, worry, all of which are issues that can be handled reasonably well in a psychologist's office or in a good counselor's office. But the anxiety, it is said in studies at Johns Hopkins University, one of the best known universities in the United States, has done a study that says too often people are so impatient about their gender identity that they want to have this surgery as soon as possible. And therefore, they won't go through the course of psychological counseling that might help them to grow through this. Okay, you and I are born either male or female. No matter what happens, no matter what surgeries take place, no matter what puberty blockers are given, you will always be chromosomally either XX or XY. XY if you're guy, XX if you're a girl. Gender identity is different than that. Gender identity says that even though biologically the person knows they're XX or XY, they don't want to be that. They want to be the opposite sex of the one that they were given, if you will, at birth. And there are ways that that can happen. First of all, if parents are somewhat immature, if parents are not going to allow their child to go through psychologically what they might need to go through, they might talk to a medical doctor about giving them what is called puberty blockers. And that's going to delay, obviously, the onset of puberty, while this young person may even have trans surgery, in which a 12-year-old could have their breasts removed. A boy could be in a situation where he'd never grow a whisker, but still it doesn't solve the issue of gender identity. Someone says, I identify as a woman, and therefore I want trans surgery so I can be a woman. But the fact of the matter is, they are not women. Any woman that would see a transgendered woman would say that's not a woman. That's a man who has gone through surgery. And they find, this study finds, as they get older, there can be regrets and there's no way of going back. But they didn't get adequate ethical care. Why? Because trans surgery is big business and very, very costly. Hormones are given first, and with young ones, the puberty blockers, and then the surgery itself really can be very traumatic and painful. But you know what? Getting everything that that person wants is not going to take away the psychological issues that move them toward getting that in the first place without having counseling and therapy, which may have solved the issue or which they didn't keep up with. And you know what they found? They found that transgendered people, and again, people are going to say you're transphobic if you say this, but the studies have found, the secular studies have found, that within 4 years of surgery, that the likelihood of suicide increases by 4 times the national average. And after 10 years of trans surgery, the incidence of suicide is 20 times the rest of the population. And yet, gender theory is pushing this as a value, that it's good to get this, and if you don't agree with me, you're transphobic. Oh well, there's 2 genders, male and female, but I identify as a woman, therefore it's a value for me to be able to get this. Now, the implications of this in education are stunning, absolutely stunning. Let me tell you what's going on in my country. What's going on in my country, particularly on campuses, is that students are taking gender theory classes. Not only there, but it's being taught in public schools and in grade schools. There are books right now for 7-year-olds that talk about we shouldn't just say boys and girls anymore. We shouldn't say him or her anymore to distinguish boys from girls, but rather we should call someone by the pronoun with which they identify. And let's say a young boy or a young girl is going through this dysphoria and they're getting counseling, but they say to their teacher, I don't want you to call me a boy. I want to be called girl. Everyone in that classroom must call that boy her. And if they don't call her, they're going to be in trouble. Now, this obviously is going to confuse young people. And young people, especially in grade school, are being taught now in public school that if you have any kind of confusion about your identity, no, it is perfectly good and perfectly all right, and you should think about changing your gender to become a girl, to become a guy, to become a man or become a woman. And you know what? In so many states now in the United States, upheld by the courts in those states, particularly Michigan is one of them, if a young boy or young girl, teenager or younger, goes to a doctor and says, I want trans surgery, I want puberty blockers, they do not have to tell their parents. There used to be a time when at a school, if you're going to give a child an aspirin for a headache, you have to call the parents. Not anymore. And the school where they are will send them to the appropriate doctor to be able to begin the transition, perhaps with hormones, from boy to girl. And this now is seen as value, and it's gotten to the point where the Senate of the United States is interviewing potential judges for the federal courts, and in so many instances are asking a simple question. Can you define what a woman is? Simple enough question, right? They say, well, it's rather complicated, you know. And they'll go, and I said, no. I don't want theory, because it is theory. Theory means there's no reality in medicine or in psychiatry or psychology that proves what you're saying is true. Can you describe to me what is a woman? And they will not do it. And then they get appointed to the federal judiciary, okay? And they become judges. And when they become judges, they're going to affirm kids and teenagers being able to have life-altering surgery from which they can never go back, and makes it likely in their adulthood, when the anxiety doesn't go away for the rest of their life, or the depression, they're saying this is a good thing. There's not two genders anymore. There's whoever you identify as, that's what you are, a man or a woman. Well, supposing I'm 76 now, and supposing I said to you, I identify as a 46-year-old, and you must call me a 46-year-old, or you're being age phobic. Well, we would say that's silly, wouldn't we? But if somebody says to us, all right, I am not a man, I am a woman, and you must say her or she when you refer to me, that's not free speech anymore. That's the government of a state or the federal government saying to me, we are compelling you to say to that person, her. You cannot refer to him as he, even though we all know he's a biological male. You see? Now, that is taking root in America unbelievably. It is taking root in America in such a way that in schools right now, there are textbooks that speak about things that children simply are not ready for. Let me give an example. You can find it probably somewhere on YouTube. There was an 11-year-old boy who got up at a school board meeting. Understand that school boards and teachers unions are responsible for what is taught in the school. And many teachers union, including the National Education Association, do not believe that parents should have any input whatsoever into their child's education. We will decide what we teach. We will decide what books the children are allowed to read. So this 11-year-old boy got up, and his father gave him permission to do so, got up at a school board meeting, which is a public meeting, and he read from a book which was prominently displayed as pick this up and read it in the library, and he began to read it. And the language that was there, the boy, the 11-year-old boy, was reading the book. And when we went to the bathroom, he pulled my pants down, and I got nervous as he lifted up my shirt. And that's the first time that me, and the first time I allowed him to me. And I mean, I'm stunned listening to this. And then the boy said, this book, to the librarian, the school librarian, she said, would you like, you're entitled to it, would you like the more graphic novel of that book? And the father got up and he said, by any definition, this is sexual abuse of young people. By any definition, you members of the school board are sexual abusers. And if the coach, and it was the football coach, that introduced that book into the library to be read by the students, if he is not fired tomorrow, I am going to the police and have all of you indicted, arrested, and then indicted for child sexual abuse. That is going on in our schools. You think that's shocking? All in the name of gender identity. In public schools now, at the grade school and high school level, you know how we used to have school assemblies? Now there are school assemblies, and this is not in just a few places. This is in a lot of places all over the country. Just so you won't be transphobic, we're going to have a drag show. And they bring in transgender persons who do a show and show the new things they had put on, the breasts and everything, so that children and high school students will learn not to be transphobic. 10 years ago, people weren't transphobic. And they weren't transphobic 20 years ago. When people saw them, they didn't run away in fear and scream because they had a phobia. They just knew that this person has some difficulties and that we're not going to judge them. They've gone through hell psychologically. But at the same time, we don't believe that we should have to affirm in such a way that goes against what we know the truth, that that's a man who has had surgery and hormones and looks like a woman, but is not. And you know what else is going on? In the United States now, we have men's sports and we have women's sports. Now, transgendered men, college students basically, that want to compete are allowed to compete in women's sports, in swimming, in basketball, in wrestling, and they are allowed to change into their sports uniform in the dressing room of the girls, and President Catholic Biden is okay with that. They should be allowed to participate in girls' sports, and they should be allowed to go into unisex bathrooms where girls undress because they are no longer boys, they're girls. And therefore, they should be allowed to participate in sports. Now, if they participated in boys' sports, they might not even make the team. But if they participate in girls' sports, guess what? They always win for a very simple reason. Their muscle mass is different. Not only that, but their bone density is different, and they're simply stronger. And therefore, they win the competitions. But basically, those who are in the transgender movement, and it includes everything I've told you now, the sociological results, they believe strongly that all of this is perfectly okay, so that we affirm people whose identity they choose themselves. That's called narcissism. Narcissism says, I live by my truth. And if my truth says I'm a woman, you must affirm me. If my truth says I want to participate in women's sports, you must affirm me. If I want to do a drag school at a public school, I should be allowed to do it because I identify that way. And you know what? A large, millions of people in the United States absolutely agree with that. And what does that do to a family? What does that do to a society? What does that do to the way in which we educate and raise our children? And by the way, in America, they don't teach American history anymore. They're teaching equality and equity. And equity basically means if you are not qualified for a job and somebody else is, we're going to choose you to have the job because of your identity. It's what you identify with. That's the truth. And President Biden had Gay Pride Day at the White House, and nothing wrong with that, except for the fact that he said, you are the most courageous group of people, and this included a lot of transsexuals. You are the most courageous group of people I have ever met in my life. And what about people who gave their lives for their country? What about the veterans who committed suicide by the rate of 22 guys or women a day? No, transsexuals now are the most valuable ones in our society. How sad. And I'll finally tell you this. You're not going to believe this, but it's true. This is how far it's gone in the United States. Now, understand there's a difference between a transvestite and a transsexual. A transvestite usually is heterosexual man and has a wife and children, but he likes to dress up. That's a transvestite. A transsexual, on the other hand, I am a woman and you must call me a woman because that's what I identify as. Now, there are a group of transvestite gay men who dress up as nuns. And they call themselves the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And their theme is not, as Jesus said, go sin no more. Wherever they go, they say, go sin some more. You can look it up on video and you'll be horrified what you see. What they do is they get a big crucifix with the corpus of Jesus still on it. And dressed up as nuns, as women, they copulate with Jesus on the cross. And they have Mary Madonna beauty contests where they will have that beauty get up and do a pole dance on the crucifix. And yet, do you know what? The Los Angeles Dodgers baseball team on Gay Pride Night invited the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence because they wanted to recognize them as heroes. This anti-Catholic group who hate Catholics and what the Catholics stand for are being honored as heroes because they raise money for AIDS. The California Senate are inviting them to the Florida Senate. The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, go sin some more, and they will get an award for being heroes. That's where it's going in my country. And the reason I talked to Brother Alvin about it, he said it's beginning to creep in here. And I never thought that could happen in my country. I never thought for a moment that could happen in my country, but it did. It's called dysphoria. It's a psychological condition. It causes great anxiety, depression, and all kinds of fears. It can be helped with long-term psychological care. Beta blockers not be given. Most people, they get through it. Those who don't get through it will have to deal perhaps with an anxiety disorder and depression for a while. But again, anxiety and depression can be treated. But to radically change your gender, and for a society to say there are no longer two genders. By the way, a boy in a public school was expelled 2 weeks ago for wearing a t-shirt to class that said there are only two genders, and he was expelled from the school for being transphobic. So this is what's going on, and if anybody probably watches this on YouTube in the United States, I'll be canceled, and you'll see all kinds of vitriol and all kind of name calling going on. But what I've shared with you, I haven't even pointed to religion, have I? Brother Kaloy took that part of it. What I speak about is the truth that's known by medical and psychological science, that there are no studies at all that say puberty blockers and trans surgery are really good and have long-term wonderful effects. In fact, studies are showing that just the opposite is true. I hope I didn't offend or shock you by what I've had to say tonight, but I think I've had to say it because it is what's going on in the States and much of Europe. Much of the States is becoming highly secularized, not allowed to pray anymore in class or at graduations. No prayer can be given. Catholicism and Christianity are still the only religions in America that can be mocked and nobody will be held accountable. You could not do that. You could not take an imam and do a pole dance on him or the Quran. But born-again Christians, Protestants, but mostly Catholics are being bashed and nobody's taking accountability. So this is what I've had to share with you tonight. This is both 5th and 6th commandment, as you can see. And next month, we'll move on to the 7th. But I think what I've shared with you and what Brother Kaloy have shared with you tonight are vitally important. And please, if you have any questions, agreements, disagreements, feel free to let us know and we'll do the best we can under God's grace to respond. Thanks for listening. God bless.
Thank you, Father Bob and Brother Kaloy. So let's show them some love. So you may say your gratitude on the chat tab. Okay, thank you. So we have here from Brother Tony. Thank you so much, Father Bob and Brother Kaloy. Very timely message and learning, alarming reality. There you go. So again, may I invite everyone to please type your questions on the chat tab because in a few minutes, okay, we'll be asking Father Bob, okay, and Brother Kaloy your questions. But before we have the Q&A, let's listen first from two of our builders here at the feast as they give their reflections about what Brother Kaloy and Father Bob shared. And let us all welcome Brother Fred Navarro from Feast, South Luzon. Frederick pala. Brother Frederick Navarro. Hello.
Hello po, good evening to everyone. Narinig ba ako?
Yes po, hello.
Yes, good evening to everyone. Just a personal sharing. No, LGBT and transgenderism. Actually, it's more of for me. Being since LGBT, T there has transgender already. It's more of, for me, transgenderism is more on the person opting to choose deliberately the yung baliktad ng gender niya, because hindi naman lahat ng transgender would classify themselves as lesbian or gay or what. But this is what I've been saying this also in our feast here, that when man acts as if they were God, disaster will always happen. It will always result to disaster. Example, kung mangyayari mang magiging acceptable yung pag-accept sa ibang gender, ano na lang kaya yung sinabi ni Father Bob about our sports, magiging Perlas women's basketball team pero iba yung players doon, no? But more importantly for me, it is actually more of how we deliver the message to those people, no? Majority kasi sa atin, we sometimes, or a lot of times during the early stages sa isang bata, may mga connotations na kasi, especially sa mga Bisaya, yung kung ikaw ay aatras sa isang bagay or sa isang engagement, sa Bisaya kasi, nabayot na ka. So it's already one thing that we are actually parang quote unquote, we are actually contributing, no? Because I, for one, I was when I was still with the academy, I coached a women's basketball, and then this is na my players are biologically women, but they act like they're men, no? And they would be bringing their special someones during the practices, but during the practices I get to talk with their special someones, and actually one of the common among them na bakit sila ganon or bakit sila pumasok sa ganung situation was because of traumatic experiences, na sila dati silang straight na babae, but they got a traumatic experience with their guys, and when they were with yung player ko, mas nagiging maayos yung buhay nila. So it's really based on how we deliver the message, na nagiging kampante kasi yung ibang countries. Just like Nokia, Nokia didn't do anything wrong, but naging kampante lang sila with Android. Kaya nag-fail sila. If we will also become, magiging kampante tayo on how we do things and how we deliver the message, malamang what is happening in the US and in the European countries would also most likely would happen. And I think with what we're doing here, it's really a very good equipping stage or equipping na activity for us to be able to know and also to share what we have learned here. So yun lang po sa akin. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Frederick. Thank you. So, thank you. It's my first time to encounter you, and may natutunan agad ako. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for reflecting. Okay? Para tayo magkapatid, do.
Welcome.
Next, another builder will be sharing his reflection. Let us all welcome our favorite, Brother Lep Sumera of Feast 1 Bay Area.
Thank you,
Brother
Brother
Lep.
Pong. Can you hear me, Pong?
Lep Lep. Hooray.
All right. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Father Bob, Brother Kaloy. Malaman ang ating usapan ngayon, and sabi nga ni Brother Tony, it's very timely. Honestly speaking, it's not supposed to be me who will be sharing today. It should be Doc Ryan, who should be here, but he is asking if he's going to share. He needs 30 minutes to share his insights. So Brother Tony and I were thinking of just organizing an event that will cater to the message of Doc Ryan, addressing also just like what Father Bob and Brother Kaloy were discussing here about transgender, about the Soggy Bill, and other stuff. Expertise ni Doc Ryan yan. So by next month, we will have this formation that will focus on these topics. And as I was listening to the discussion, the message of Brother Kaloy, there's so much insight and in the side of spirituality, and also the beautiful message of Father Bob. In Tagalog, nakakabahala na, di ba? Nakakatakot na. And this is reality. This is really happening now. And it's like malapit na siya sa ating bansa. Yun yung nakakatakot pa. Tibong ganon. But we continue to believe, we continue to pray. Being a builder in charge of the youth, I'm already thinking about the next generation, on how they would receive this message, on how this would affect them. Ano kayang tumatakbo sa isipan nila when we talk about these things, when they listen to the news, when they see this, and when they hear discussions about this. So I was just thinking, what are they thinking? What are they thinking? What are they receiving? What is the message that do they really understand what's happening? And hindi na po ako lalayo dahil ako may anak na 4 years old na lalaki. And sabi ko nga, how can I raise, tibong ganon, paano ako magpapalaki ng isang mabuting lalaking anak na pagdating ng panahon is magiging ama siya. So, especially now with the threat of these things. Tatlong I lang po ang aking gustong i-share. Is number one is siguro influence. I think it's important that we influence tayo mismo na nasa pamilya. We influence the young ones. We influence them in going to the right path. Dahil ang mundo ngayon, maraming influence. Ang tanong lang, is it a BI or a bad influence? But I pray that it's going to be a godly influence, a loving influence, so that they won't have this confusion, para hindi sila mawala. Wherein I'm going to the next identity. Sinasabi kanina to ni Brother Kaloy and ni Father Bob, it's important that we stick to sino ba talaga tayo? What's our identity? And we've been discussing this in the feast, that it's like putting matters into our own hands when we say that hindi ako mali na I shouldn't be in this body. And that's playing God, right? Tama si Brother Kaloy na parang we disregard God in that moment when we say that. So it's important that we really know who we are, our own identity. Just a quick sharing. Father Bob was sharing about a certain book kanina. And kaming mag-asawa po, we've been so sensitive and careful on what we will watch, on what we will read, on what we will allow Migs to open in the YouTube or kung saan pa man at kung kami din nanonood, no, we're maingat kami. And we came across this book. Medyo skandalosa yung title. Ako ay may titi. So we bought this book for our son. And it's filled with so much insight na parang tinuturo sa bata pa lang. Just imagine bata pa lang. Tinuturo sa bata pa lang, lalaki ka. Kaya ka may titi. Sorry So, sabi ko, yes, we need that. Ang daming ang daming kaguguluhang baka malito siya. We need that as early as now. Ituro natin. As young as he is, kailangan nating sabihin sa kanya. Ito yung meron ka. And as early as now, we need him to realize that so that he would know yung identity niya. And my third eye is, if ever darating ang panahon that he would be confused, siguro wag tayong magkatakot na magkaroon ng intervention. That's another eye. That we lovingly, not confront, but carefront. That's how we do things in the feast, right? We carefront our young ones, our kids, our children. At the end of the day, sabi nga kanina ni Brother Frederick, there's that maybe that experience, that traumatic experience that they've been through, kaya na-lost sila, kaya nawala sila, kaya nakalimot sila, kaya na-confuse sila. So, yun lang. Influence, identity, and intervention. I just want to thank Brother Kaloy and Father Bob for this message. Very, very timely and a lot of insight. God bless everybody.
Thank you, Brother Lep. Okay. Lep. Hooray. So, sabi nga ni Brother Kalodito, Brother Lep, I agree, parents should teach their children about sexuality. There you go. And the title of the book is really very much okay lang naman kasi it's how we call it. Okay? Pero di ko mabanggit, no? Anyway, thank you so much. Brother Lep. All right. In fact, earlier, Brother Lep mentioned about what do you call this one? Nakakabahala na. Okay, it's already bothersome. And Sis Steph on the chat tab mentions, true po, I watched testimonials from previous transgenders. So previous to so they've changed. Okay, and most of them are victims of sexual abuse or bullying. She also added na nakakatakot din po ang mga advertisements ngayon that show same-sex relationships considering na walang censorship. Yeah, that's indeed become bothersome. Okay, let's now go to the Q&A. So for those who are on YouTube and those who are on Facebook, you may post your questions on the comment section of YouTube and on Facebook, and then we would try to give our best to pull your questions so we can answer them here on Zoom. So far, we already have 2 questions here, Father Bob and Brother Kaloy. Okay, and the first question is this. This is for Father Bob. What are your thoughts on the theory that the demon called Jezebel is working its way to disrupt God's people's identity as the first step to pull them away from God? And how can we pray for them?
Yeah, the demonic is real. And that's why we call Satan the father of lies, because he presents it in such a beautiful way. It seems like, to allow and to encourage people to be whatever they want to be, without him. Go ahead. Those Catholics, they don't know what they're talking about. So yeah, the evil spirit doesn't have to possess us in order to tempt us. And it really can come into a nation that drives God out, which is precisely what has happened in the United States. As I said, no prayer in schools, no prayer at football games, You're not really allowed to talk about God at all in a public school. They've replaced God with, electronic devices to see that people aren't bringing guns in to the schools. But can the evil spirit influence a nation's psyche? It certainly can. Now, there's always going to be people that are going to fight back about this. And you watch some of the YouTubes on parents at school board meetings. Wow, you're proud of them because they're standing up against the tide. So whenever there's a great outpouring of the Holy Spirit, there is always an outpouring of the evil spirit. And that's where we see the competition right now in Europe and in the United States. God always wins. I think that what you're going to see in future generations is that they will look back on this and say, wow, we didn't really realize how evil that was. And we were easily seduced by the media, by our government, and by our school teachers and school boards, that they actually became instruments of evil, even though they may have intended to do good.
Brother Kaloy?
I will also answer.
Ah, you have some thoughts.
Yeah, we are all familiar with the principalities, no? As
Yes.
one of the choirs of angels. And the principalities are angels assigned in a particular country or a particular, they have their own territories. And if angels have this kind of territories, it's the same with the with the with the other side. So devils also have this kind of uh, uh, just like the principalities. There are demons assigned in a particular country, in a particular city, or in a particular town, or in a particular uh, clan, family, and we should be uh,
Siguro,
is
hindi pa kasi natin alam kung gaano.
okay. I was hearing an audio a while ago. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
the technique of the devil is for us not to believe that they exist. They do exist. So we have to acknowledge this. And we have to bring this into prayer. And we have to also ask the intercession of the principalities, our own angels, so that we will be protected from these evil spirits.
All right. So thank you, Father Bob and Brother Kaloy. And indeed, let us acknowledge the presence of the what do you call this, of the demons as well, because they could also affect the way we think, okay, and the way we believe in things.
Mhm.
So here's another question for both of you. So of course we all know that it's getting longer and longer. I mean, it's LGBTQIA plus, okay, and I would not be surprised if in the following years there will be more letters there. So let's pertain to the I part here, the intersex. So what about the intersex people who were born having both male and female reproductive organs? They get to decide which gender they're supposed to have? They're also considered trans. Are they also believed to have identity dysphoria?
No, it's hermaphroditism. It's a genetic thing that happens that it's rather mysterious and we can't explain it. I don't know. I will always tell you when I don't know something, and I cannot answer that question. I don't know.
Mhm.
But no, they don't get, the gender identity there is confused, obviously. But if there are male genitalia then I think that primarily you would have to say that their gender is male. Again, examine the chromosomes and you will probably find that they're XY.
Mhm. Okay.
Mm.
Brother Kaloy?
Yes. Is my signal stable,
Yes.
or
Yes.
are you losing me? Because
No,
okay,
you're good.
I agree with Father Bob. Uh, yeah, genes do not lie. It's with the XY and the XX chromosomes. So uh, we do not only depend on the genitalia in determining or in knowing the gender of an individual, but uh, even if we go to the genes, the chromosomes would tell that male individuals really have XY chromosomes, and female would really have XX chromosomes.
All right. Thank you. In fact, there are more questions here on the chat tab. So let's continue with the next question. So this is by Sis Bel Santiago. Okay. Father Bob, what can you say about my friend who told me she really had tried her best to be a true woman, but then she really feels uh, the opposite, and she even asked God uh, why he, why God made her a lesbian. So she no longer attends mass. So I think this is more about how do we deal with our friends, okay, who have quote unquote transition, or who have been taken by this
Okay,
identity or gender theory.
that's okay. That's two questions, and I'll try and answer them.
Sure.
Okay.
Hmm.
If a person says, I've done my best, right? Having surgery will not solve the problem. Okay. And I've done my best sounds like I've done this on my own. I've given it a lot of thought, a lot of prayer. But when someone comes to Brother Kaloy or myself for counseling, we realize where our expertise leaves off and where we need to refer them to someone else. So if a friend comes to you and they said, I've done my best, send them to see a sensitive, good listening counselor who can perhaps refer them, because as I said early on in my talk there, what the studies are finding is usually that it's the underlying emotional distraught that a person is going through, and not their chromosomes, but what they're going through that needs to be addressed. To not address it superficially, meaning by saying, okay, you've done everything you can, now you should get the surgery. Right? But rather to send them to a competent, and I think in most cases, psychologists rather than psychiatrists. They don't need medication necessarily because they are dealing, we've always been taught in counseling to listen to what a person is not saying. They're giving you a presenting problem, is what we learn. Okay. So we are not necessarily qualified to deal beyond that, except to be compassionate, caring, and remain friends, no matter what. Okay? But to really be truly loving and helpful, we should refer them, because as you notice that there is this strong impatience with my identity that makes me move on to what I think is going to be the solution. And then rarely the study is showing, does a person who becomes trans get the full treatment? And they come to the realization that perhaps, okay, now I look like a man, or now I look like a woman, but the interior disposition, the interior feelings, the psychological difficulties that arise either before or after should be addressed long term in order for there to be some resolution and peace. Knowing that at the same time, God is in the picture here. And God, through your friends or through the psychologist or through a medical doctor, whatever it happens to be, are there to help you and not to be bigoted against you. People will say, why did God make me a lesbian? Why did God make me a gay person? God created everyone. We still don't know the origins of why a person becomes or discovers or finds themselves to be gay or not gay or both, bisexual. We don't know. All we know is that God does not create junk. So a person doesn't make up their sexuality, particularly if they're gay or lesbian. They discover it. And then they, no less than heterosexuals, are called to chastity. Do we all live up 100% to chastity? Probably not. But it doesn't mean, when you hear, for example, in the Catholic Catechism of the Church, and there's been so much rebellion against this sentence by Pope Benedict, who wrote it. It says that homosexuality is intrinsically disordered. Now that assumes that you've had a course in philosophy. The word intrinsic, big long 50,000 peso word, means by its very self. By its very self, it's disordered. Well, they're calling me a name. No. What it intrinsically means that two men cannot produce a child. Two women cannot produce a child. What sexuality is ordered to is procreation of children. And in that sense, and only in that sense, is being lesbian or gay disordered. It is not a mockery. It is not throwing bad names at somebody, okay? So if you discover yourself to be gay or you discover yourself to be lesbian, you are welcome. We have many gays and lesbians that come to the feast and feel very wonderful, affirmed, and know they're loved by God because they share that with one another and they hear it from Brother Bo, they hear it from the priest. They're not to be condemned at all, okay? But all of us, heterosexual, bisexual, or gay, are called to that very difficult virtue called chastity. And it's difficult without God's grace to live it, you see? So don't judge yourself because you are gay or because you are lesbian. That's not you. That's one dimension of who you are. You're a lot more than that. That's how I would answer that.
That's nice, Father Bob. In fact, your answer inspires me to write a book inspired by what Brother Lep showed earlier, okay? And I'll write a book called Ako Ay May Chastity, okay?
Very good. Don't forget the royalties. 8% goes to Brother Kaloy for his ministry.
Okay, here's another question for you. Actually, I think it's the same. It's a similar sense. Father Bob by Nerissa on the chat tab. For Father Bob, please help how I can tell my niece and her two childhood friends who are young girls aged between 12 to 13 years old. They told me they identified themselves as bisexuals and they said no Bible verse prohibits them from choosing which gender they
Well, their gender is bisexual. Okay.
Right.
Gender meaning we're talking about biologically, there's no choice.
Mm-hmm.
You're either, as Brother Kaloy said, XX or XY. But if you discover that you're attracted to both, right?
Yes.
You can have an attraction without sinning. All right. And you can't say, well, I just think I'll choose heterosexual. And you can. And then you get married. But you might still have an attraction toward another person. An attraction isn't a sin, it's a reality. Okay?
Mhm.
So the way that I would deal with a 12 or 13-year-old who is beginning to experience that is to say, let's see how things go as you grow. Because they're not going to be having sex at age 12 or 13. How should they call themselves? Well, they are. I'm bisexual. I feel attracted, and they might find out what we call is that there is what we call pseudo homosexuality. And pseudo homosexuality is going through a period, and many adolescent boys go through it, and adolescent girls, where they feel attracted to their same sex and might even, explore that physically with another boy or another girl. All right. But that does not mean that they are homosexual or lesbian. It does not mean that at all. And so, not to be too quick to make a judgment on whether you're lesbian or gay.
Mhm.
Pseudo homosexuality is what it's called in psychology.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Does that
I'd like
make
to add
sense?
something,
go, Brother Kaloy.
and I also would like to connect this with the question earlier. First of all, we do not say that being lesbian or being gay is sinful. It
Right.
is it is the act that which makes it sinful. The homosexual acts, those those are what we consider sinful, what we are condemning, but not the person. And whenever we encounter uh, people, loved ones, friends who are going through this, we can also help them by listening to their story. As I would always say, we help them trace back their history, what happened along the way. Because usually, if as a young boy or as a young girl, one parent is an absentee, or one of the parents was not really able to put love and be available to the child, most probably this is the gender that they are attracted to. This is the sex that they are attracted to, that which is lacking in their lives. So, in the case of this 12-year-old child, we can try to check in the family. Is there something wrong with the father or something wrong with the mother? Perhaps uh, the ones that we need to advise are the parents, not the children, that they need to give more time to their children. No, because most of the time what happens is that we we spend so much time in working, no? So much time with our jobs that we do not have time anymore for our children. So they are near and yet they are so far. And I myself have this kind of experience with one of my nephews. No, he is having a difficult time because his parents are always absent, busy with their work, busy with their jobs. So we might, it would also be good to look at to ask the parents about their relationship with their children.
And it's difficult for parents often to talk to their kids about sexual issues. It's true in America. It's true here. And the famous thing is, where did you learn about sex? On the streets from my friends. And that's where the myths develop. And that's why I think it's very important, although there are many parents that would be totally against what I'm saying. I really believe that there should be, in the Catholic schools, sex education. And it doesn't mean the sex education is about the plumbing and how you do it. What sexual education is about the total gift of sexuality that is given to a guy and a girl, and then along with the truth. so that it becomes a lot less embarrassing then to talk about it with parents. And some people would be, no, you shouldn't do that, because if you do that, then they're going to go and they're going to have sex. No, they're not. Not if you give them the total picture, rather than this is how you go about doing it and this is what happens. And that's where parents might feel kind of uncomfortable. But to talk about, I mean, wherever you go, you take your sexuality with you. You never leave it behind. I don't care if you're 80 or 8, your sexuality is always with you. How do you express your sexuality? Either celibately or in marriage or wherever it happens to be. But it's the totality of who you are, male and female.
All right. I think that would be the perfect way to end our question and answer, Father Bob. Okay. That we for us to understand more sexuality, we can understand it in its totality. Okay. So there you go. I think one. Okay. Brother Tony Valenzuela of East Bay Area comments, correct, Brother Kaloy. So the youth of today go to the social media and friends for seemingly correct answers instead of family and parents journeying with them. Okay, that's so true.
Mm.
All right, that's so true. Okay,
I'd
Thank
like
you.
to comment
Thank you, Tony.
brother earlier.
yeah, yes, Brother Kaloy.
Yes, I'd like to commend the brother left earlier with this sharing that as early as being a child, as parents, he was able to discuss this sensitive topic with his own son. And that's very
Mhm.
important. Parents should be the ones to have time and teach their children.
Brother,
But I like to see that in coordination with the Catholic schools. I would like to see it, in our light groups to talk about it. I would
Yeah.
like to see us. I was saying to Brother Alvin, I would love to preach on this issue or speak on this issue at the Feast Bay area. And I can't wait to introduce Brother Kaloy to the feast. The Cebu Pacific kept him from getting there on time because of the pouring rain in Manila. But we'll have him up maybe around the first weekend in August. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Please, Brother Kaloy, we need to see you now. All right. Okay.
And
So
thank you, Brother Lep. You were great yesterday. You were terrific. I was sitting out in the theater listening to you. You were terrific. Thank you.
the long pogi points ka na, Brother Lep, ha? So thank you so much, Father Bob and Brother Kaloy. And for our brothers and sisters who are still here, can you please send some love to Brother Kaloy and Father Bob on the chat tab? Okay, thank you, everyone. And now, can you please turn your cameras on as we'll be having our traditional, okay, our photo shoot or group photo rather. Okay. There we go. So there's the outpouring of love and gratitude. So Brother Fred's camera is now on. Brother Oscar, hello. Hello po. Ayan, si Spat, si Beth, hello. Okay. Sino ba magpipicture? Ace, ikaw na. Thank you. Sis Mary, be careful. Maglalakad ka. Ay, nasa bahay ka lang pala. Okay. Brother Ace?
Yep. Okay, wait. 1, 2, 3. Second page po. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you.
Ayan. Okay, thank you. So we like to invite you on our next discipleship gathering that will be in July. And as already mentioned by Father Bob earlier, we'll be talking about the 7th commandment. Okay, ang ikapitong utos ng Diyos. Okay, and of course, please stay as we'll be having the breakout rooms for our reflection question for tonight, and that is, what has been your greatest lesson, your greatest takeaway in this discipleship gathering? Okay, So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Again, I'm Brother Paul, and I'll see you next month for our next discipleship gathering. Bye. God bless.
Thank you, Paul. Great job. God bless.